So it's December, which means Halloween is past. We're on the winter months now. All the talk is about Christmas horror movies. But that said, Halloween is year round if you're a fan of the Halloween franchise. No matter what time of the year it is, we're all entitled to one good ranking of the Halloween series. Let's talk about it. Hello, everyone. Vic here with another video talking about the Halloween series. Now, listen, if you're watching this video, you're clearly a fan of Halloween, and you probably have your own takes, your own opinions on how to rank the series. This is my personal opinion. It's going to be quite the hot take for some people, going to ruffle some feathers, but that's okay. That's what opinions are for, right? So let's get into the list. We're going to rank all 13 movies. My number 13, the bottom of the barrel, the worst Halloween movie for me is Halloween Resurrection. Now, listen, I think that the low-hanging fruit of this movie is just talking about Busta Rhymes kicking Michael Myers' ass. I mean, that's we all know that's a huge problem in the movie. I would give the movie props for having somewhat of a futuristic storyline, the idea of cameras in the house, reality show based. This felt like a little bit ahead of its time, but it was executed poorly. The whole movie is executed poorly. Even the opening with Jamie Lee Curtis to me is executed poorly. She dies in the stupidest way possible. She just had to know that it was Michael, grabbing for the mask, got herself killed. Not the best ending for Laurie Strode, in my opinion. Flat characters throughout. Didn't care for the main character. In another video, I said that Rudy was the only redeeming character in Halloween Resurrection. Should not have sacrificed himself for Sarah, who did not return the favor. But props to Rudy for being the only likable character in this whole damn movie. But overall, a huge disappointment after H2O. Halloween Resurrection to me is the most passably silly movie in the series, and it gets no respect from me. Although, like all the movies in the series, it is somewhat rewatchable. Okay, now we're gonna go right into Hot Take Central. This is gonna make some fans mad, but my number 12 is going to be Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Let me preface this. Now, that'd be quite the hot take if it was the other Halloween 2, but no. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I'm just going to keep this short and simple. I don't understand the movie. I don't get it. I don't get the appeal. I understand that this movie does have a hell of a following, actually. If you diss Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, you usually actually get some pushback. For me, it doesn't feel like a Halloween movie. It feels like a different kind of movie. I was not a huge fan of the Rob Zombie aesthetic, the Rob Zombie storylines, this presentation of Michael. I know he's a 9 feet tall badass in the Rob Zombie movies, but it doesn't really feel like Michael Myers to me. It feels more like Jason, to be honest. So I have to go here, number 12 with that. But I will say that it's been a while since I've seen the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, so it is probably time to eventually revisit that and maybe give a reappraisal. But on this current ranking, has to be number 12. All right, let's go to number 11. This is going to get some pushback too because it's somewhat controversial, but something has to be here, and that something is Halloween Ends. Now, unlike a lot of modern Halloween fans, I wasn't the hugest fan of the Blumhouse trilogy. Well, I mean, that'll be reflected in this list, of course, but the biggest problem with the trilogy for me was Halloween Ends. I do admit that Halloween Ends on its face, without any of their context, is actually a pretty good movie on its own. And what I mean is that you have good acting, you have a good story. I like the actor who played Corey. I like Corey's ascent to madness. I like the whole setup with Corey throughout the movie. But it was the wrong movie to end this trilogy. As an ender of a trilogy, it just underwhelms. And then you have the entire Corey story only for us to be for that to be completely undermined because you have to shoehorn in the Laurie Strode versus Michael Myers fight at the end, which does not feel earned. This movie does not feel like the proper fit to end this movie. It was Corey's story. They should have just continued to let it be Corey's story. I would have had Corey be alive at the end or have him more involved in the ending. Halloween Ends is just a miss, but it had a lot of potential. And let's see, on a rewatch, maybe I'll have a new respect for this movie, but I just didn't do it for me. And like the Busta Rhymes thing, Michael Myers getting beat up in the sewer by Corey is just always going to stand in my mind. You know, it's always going to come back of that. That's like my biggest takeaway from the movie. But listen, the movie has its fans, and I get it completely. If you're a huge Halloween Ends fan and supporter, which I've seen in the comments, that's come up a lot. It's perfectly fine. I mean, listen, I don't hate the movie. It's just it's not going to be in my top 10 here. So okay, moving on then, because I've already kind of confessed that I'm not the biggest Blumhouse trilogy fan or the biggest Rob Zombie Halloween fan. Next on the list, number 10, has to be Rob Zombie's Halloween. So what I like about this movie a lot is the sort of the scenes with Michael as a kid where he's interacting with this version of Loomis. I would have loved for the entire movie to have been about Michael as a kid at the hospital interacting with Loomis. That could have actually fit into the canon and would have been fascinating just to see their a focus on their dynamic. But I didn't care for Michael Myers' entire background. Him having a kind of a typical serial killer background where he's bullied as a child, has a terrible upbringing with a terrible family. I didn't really like that part of it. Like Michael is the essence of evil, and sometimes explaining too much is not the best take. Giving Michael an explanation here makes him less scary to me. The second half of the movie kind of falls into being more a traditional remake. But this movie had a lot of potential, but I would have liked to gave us something different. Maybe just focus strictly on the Michael as a child with Loomis, have him terrorize the hospital, kill random people. Have that be the entire movie. I thought would have been fascinating. But for what it is, it's a pretty good remake. I just again, it doesn't feel like a Halloween movie to me, but on its own, it's not bad. So okay, well, now we're getting into the nitty gritty here because everything from here on is are movies that I actually have come to like and respect. And there's one movie that I'm sure a lot of people are surprised hasn't been named yet. The next movie I'm about to name probably is in most people's bottom 2 or 3, but on a recent watch, I found it to be pretty respectable, and I'm talking about Halloween 5. Halloween 5, which probably gets the most hate in the series, I would say, next to maybe Halloween Ends or Halloween Resurrection. But I am slowly becoming a fan of Halloween 5. I have to admit, on this last watch, I found it to be kind of a fun, watchable movie. I love the cat and mouse game going on in this movie between Loomis and Michael. I think Don Shanks as Michael does a pretty solid job. I wasn't mad at Michael shedding a tear. I thought that would be egregious, but watching it, I was like, okay, well, if this is hinting at the Thorn storyline here, then it makes sense that Michael maybe is being controlled and has the tear there. Um, I don't know. I just found Loomis to be you know, really engaging in Halloween 5. And on this recent rewatch, I wasn't that annoyed with Tina. I know Tina is probably the most hated character in the Halloween series. And listen, we all would have loved for Rachel to have survived this movie. Her death is the worst part about Halloween 5. But not that I took a strong warming to Tina, but I find her to be better with more watches. And I do like how she sacrifices herself for Jamie. Should have been Rachel's death scene for sure, but I didn't mind Tina's much. Yes, the laughing the cops are still as stupid as ever, probably the worst cops in horror movies ever. Um, Michael does a lot of stalking in this movie, a lot of Michael in the background. It feels like Michael from the first movie. I have to say, I'm becoming a fan of Halloween 5. I never thought I would say that, but that's the recent reality. Halloween 5 is to me now a watchable sequel. Okay, well, now I don't have a huge problem with Halloween Kills, but that whole subplot, the evil dies tonight subplot, that whole hospital scene, the guy being confused as Michael, even though he looks nothing like Michael. Nobody would ever confuse that person with Michael Myers. That slows the whole movie down to a complete stop and feels like a scene from an entire different franchise. Not only from a different movie, a different franchise. So that's my major problem with Halloween Kills is that, and then Michael being a Jason type killer where he's taking out the fire department, fighting like he's John Wick. I don't know. That seems a little bit over the top for what's supposed to be more a grounded version of Michael Myers. This feels like definitely a supernatural Michael Myers, but it's just the mob thing that keeps this movie from elevating me. I do like the flashback sequence at the beginning. I like some of the kills, but after Halloween Kills, next on the list, we're gonna go with Halloween H2O. Now, H2O is pretty polarizing just because when it first came out, it was very warmly received by Halloween fans. I mean, if you go back to 1998, the early 2000s, the original Halloween message board, halloweenmovies.com, I think it was, this amazing Halloween message board with all the Halloween fans. H2O was very popular back in the day. I think people would be surprised like how warmly receptive H2O was to Halloween fans. And then the last like 5 to 10 years, something happened where people started calling it the Scream sequel and outdated and copying off Scream and a teeny bopper MTV Scream sequel. I don't know. I never really saw it that way. The movie's very brief. It's very short. It has a terrible presentation of Michael Myers in terms of the actor and how Michael is. I gotta admit that doesn't really do it for me, but it's a fun sequel and has, for me, the best depiction of Laurie Strode. It's the best Jamie Lee Curtis performance to me is right here in Halloween H2O. The last 15 minutes, once you get to her versus Michael, fantastic. One of the best last 15 minutes of any Halloween movie in the series, if not the best. When she chops off his head at the end, chops off Michael's head, not a damn paramedic, in my opinion. Definitely Michael. Whatever the case, that's such a great way to end that timeline. We have to, of course, ignore Resurrection, but um, I think this movie is a solid 85 minutes, honestly. It's a fun movie, fun opening, fun ending, and very rewatchable. Halloween H2O is definitely very watchable. So no real problems here with that. Okay. Now, the next one, again, outside of Halloween 5, there's one other here that I think that people usually have at the bottom of the list, but it's pretty high up for me. It's actually it's making the top 5 here. Number 5 for me, believe it or not, is Halloween 6. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers theatrical version. Let me preface, I'm talking about the theatrical version. Why do I like this movie a lot? The fall atmosphere, the fall vibe, the cinematography, the mood, Michael Myers himself, just a complete total badass in this movie. To me, this is one of my favorite versions of Michael. This is the realized version of Michael that Loomis is talking about in part one. The pure essence of evil. Really gives no crap about anything in this movie, just going around being a complete badass. Um, a lot of people feel like Paul Rudd is a bad actor in this movie, but I have no real problem with his portrayal of Tommy Doyle. I think that he's trying to channel some idea of becoming the next Dr. Loomis. That's why he's kind of creepy and strange and has a lot of weird mannerisms. He's supposed to be a little bit off in the movie, I think. So I'm cool with him as Tommy Doyle. I like Kara. Loomis is, underused, and especially the theatrical cut, they cut off a lot of his scenes are in the producer's cut, but still, Loomis is always a good thing to have in the movie. So, the downsides of the movie is that the storyline makes no damn sense. And both producers and theatrical, you have a terrible storyline. And then the ending for both movies is flat, mainly because Donald Pleasance wasn't alive for the reshoot. So we just get some ending in the theatrical where Loomis is screaming, which I want to add, just to go with my other video. That doesn't mean that Michael killed Loomis. No. Um, and then you have the canon storyline for the producer's cut where Loomis becomes Michael's keeper, I guess, which again, how the hell were you going to make a sequel of that, given Loomis's age and all that? But I don't know. I just, there's some flaws there. But overall, you had a fun movie, fun kills, fun atmosphere, a lot of rewatchability. Halloween 6 has a tremendous rewatchability. I don't know. Every Halloween, I have to kind of throw that in and watch it. So, Halloween 3, Season of the Underrated Movie. What a fantastic standalone movie that for many years I really didn't give a chance to. I kind of avoided it. Like, it was probably the last movie in the Halloween series that I actually saw. Why did I give it a chance? I don't know. I kind of felt like maybe how the audience felt back when it came out. I was like, a Halloween movie without Michael Myers? Like, what is this? What is this about? Like, but going in with no expectations, watching it, I felt like, wow, this is a fun Halloween movie that has the Halloween mood, the Halloween sensibilities, really original storyline, some cool deaths, and then John Carpenter didn't make this movie, but because it has the Dean Cundey cinematography, it kind of feels like almost like it feels like a John Carpenter movie that wasn't actually made by John Carpenter. He did have some involvement, but it's Tommy Lee Wallace directing here. Yeah, this is a fantastic movie that, if it just been called Season of the Witch, would have a much bigger following. The problem is when you tag it with the Halloween name, people have a certain expectation for a slasher movie, Michael Myers. It doesn't have all that, but I'm impressed every time I watch it. I find new things in the story that are very cool. I have questions. The ending leaves me hanging with more questions. Um, you could definitely make another sequel in the Halloween 3 universe, and it would be welcomed by fans, I think, at this point. Yeah, of the between this and Friday 13th Part 5 A New Beginning, for me, this is the much better movie that doesn't have its killer versus New Beginning. But that's for another video, Friday 13th video that'll be coming soon as well. So Halloween 3, all the props in the world that. Okay, so now we get into our top four. Okay, so now we're getting into our top four. And number four for me is Halloween 2018. Now, a lot's been said about Halloween 2018. Box office wise, it's literally the biggest slash movie of all time. Well, not really factoring inflation, but pure dollars and cents. It's up there. Um, I don't know. Halloween 4 is it's I saw it in theaters and I was underwhelmed on the first watch. The second watch was still underwhelmed. But on recent watches, I've come to respect Halloween 2018. It is a fantastically made movie, a lot of good kills, good characters. Even though Laurie Strode's role here is kind of like off to me, it's a great performance by Jamie Lee Curtis. She is locked in this movie for sure. Michael Myers, played by James Jude Courtney, again, probably the second best version of Michael Myers there is in terms of just acting performance wise. Really breathed some life into Michael, especially coming off of like Halloween H2O Resurrection, that depiction. You know, I gotta say, Halloween 2018, although it's not my favorite sequel, if someone does have this as their favorite sequel, I can understand it because it's a recent movie. It feels like a big budget movie. Michael is returned to his essence. He's not after a sibling. He's after just random people. Basically, he's killing random people in Haddonfield. So it does have that restored purity of Michael from part one. Great score, great soundtrack, done by John Carpenter himself. Yeah, it's a solid entry in the series. Now I also understand some of the criticisms because there is some misplaced humor in Halloween 2018. I don't need Julian running up the stairs and be like, "Oh shit," and then running back down the stairs because for me that's a scary moment. It's supposed to be a scary moment that kind of takes you out of it. And then the whole Dr. Sartain storyline is completely out of place, very much like the mob subplot in Halloween Kills. It kind of drags the movie to a stop because it's so weird and so out of nowhere. And everything with Sartain ends up being kind of a bust there, unfortunately. But again, also a solid ending though. You have a fun battle between Michael and Laurie at the end. So it's a solid movie. It's a good follow up to Halloween 1. I mean, there are some criticisms I have for it, but on rewatches, I've come to appreciate it more. And especially watching Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends makes me have much more appreciation for the idea that Halloween 2018 should have been a one off. Should have given a definitive ending, show Michael burning the fire at the end, and you have a great sequel, but it didn't really need the trilogy to come with it. It would have been a fine standalone sequel to Halloween, the initial Halloween. Uh, for me, number 3 is actually Halloween 2. Yes, the most popular sequel next to Halloween 2018 is Halloween 2, and I get it, but it's number 3 for me for a couple reasons. One thing is that on recent rewatches, I realized that although I love the hospital atmosphere, the hospital vibe, that randomly abandoned hospital with a small staff overnight, Michael stalking the shadows, I do realize that the flaw of Halloween 2 for me is that I don't care about any of the characters. Laurie's basically saddled with a nothing role here. Loomis is my favorite character in the movie, of course. But everything with the hospital staff to me is like those are like basically one note, nameless characters that Michael's killing in the hospital. So I don't get any attachment to any of the hospital staff. Um, so the characters just bring the movie down a little bit. On the plus side, though, you have a great performance of Michael from Dick Warlock. Robotic walk and all, fantastic. You have an amazing chase scene with Michael and Laurie at the end. And just the ending overall is fantastic with Loomis and Michael getting blown to smithereens after getting shot 6 times in the first one. So I'm a huge fan of Halloween 2. The best thing about Halloween 2 is that you can play it right after Halloween 1, and the fact that it picks up right where part 1 leaves off gives it a great continuity, and it's not such a big drop off. Like you can watch them back to back, and there's a little bit of a drop off for sure because Halloween is definitely a better made movie, but Halloween 2 fits in with part 1 better than Halloween 2018 or anything, so and Halloween 2, if that was the ending of Michael, it would have been perfectly fine. That's a perfectly definitive ending if you just watch Halloween and Halloween 2. So Halloween 2, it's fantastic. My only minor complaint is I wish that they would have made one or two of the hospital characters a little bit more something to latch on to. If Laurie is basically going to be in bed the entire movie with not much of a character, not much of an arc, they're just her barely in the movie, then give us Loomis and then make one of the hospital staff really like a main character, like with a bigger role. And we don't really get that there. Okay, so if Halloween 2 is number 3, then what's number 2? Well, I said in another video, but for me, Halloween 4 is my favorite Halloween sequel. Now, I've never seen a number 2 on anybody's list, and that's okay. Maybe this is just a me and Halloween 4 fans thing. But 4, it does have some flaws. Michael Myers himself, the shoulder pads, the mask. It's not the best portrayal of Michael Myers, but to me, this movie has the best characters. I like Rachel Crothers. I like Jamie. I love Loomis here. I love Sheriff Meeker. I like Brady even. I like that Brady is given that moment with Michael where he kind of redeems himself by fighting against Michael when, sacrificing himself in a way for Rachel and Jamie. So I like the characters a lot. I like the setup. I like the Halloween vibe, seeing kids trick or treating, seeing this ghost town almost, Michael stalking around this town. I like the mob story in this movie. I feel like this is much more logical. The mob gets out of control for a second, eventually leaves it up to the police to do their job. I don't have that many complaints about Halloween 4. When I go back and watch it, to me, all these movies have flaws, but I think that Michael being a little bit shaky and having pink hair in one scene, I mean, it's a flaw for sure, but ultimately, the way Michael's written, I have no problems with how the character's written. He does just enough stalking. He's awesome in the ba- he's he does just enough stalking. He's always in the background. So I have no relation with Michael in terms of his writing. It's just that the portrayal's a little bit off. But you got solid characters, solid death scenes. You have an engaging story, and Dr. Loomis is like really just a badass in this movie himself. So I can see why Michael is not. He's not even trying to take out Loomis in this movie, and that's because Loomis is a badass. So one of the better Loomis performances as well. So Halloween 4 gets all the props in the world. My favorite sequel. Now, of course, now, of course, that leaves a very clear number one. What else could it be except Halloween 1978, the original? John Carpenter. I can't say his finest moment because the thing I think is actually better than Halloween, but one of John Carpenter's finest moments, being one of my favorite directors and one of the best horror directors of all time. Just on a shoestring budget, on a shoestring budget, does so much here. Made for $300,000, would go on and inspire so many horror movies that came after that, including Friday the 13th. I can't say enough good things about Halloween, Dean Cundley's cinematography, Nick Castle's portrayal as Michael Myers, the supporting cast. Annie, I think, is one of the better, not main characters. One of the better supporting characters we have in the series is Annie. I think Sheriff Brackett does a good job, and you got Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis in the same movie. Laurie actually having something to do here, which in Halloween 2, she's kind of in bed. And this movie, we get her basically hanging out for most of the movie, but then really classic at the end, classic fight scene with Michael at the end, if you want to call it a fight scene. Um, just a truly genre-defining movie. It's hard to find too many movies that made as big of an impact on the genre of horror as Halloween did. It's gonna be hard to ever top that. The bar is very high, and no sequel really comes close, to be honest. So the OG Halloween has to be number one on pretty much every Halloween list, and that's okay. Even I want to go true hot take central. There's no way I could rank anything above the initial Halloween. Okay, well that's pretty much the list. And when a new Halloween movie comes out, I'll redo the list. But that's it for now. Let me know in the comments what you think about the list and what is your list. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. We're trying to make that slow ascent to 1,000 subscribers. That would be a big landmark for this channel. Been at it for a while. If you like Halloween, please subscribe. We're gonna have more Halloween content coming for you, more Nightmare on Elm Street content coming. Gonna start making some Scream videos too. I'm actually a pretty big Scream series fan as well. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk about there. But yeah, until next time, you guys take care.